Chapter 15, Confidence Restored. Unnerved by what had just happened, Dave struggled to maintain his confidence. "All right, let's head to the isolation wing," he said, his mouth dry. "Steve, you lead the way." "Why do I have to lead?" Steve protested. "Because you have the map, dummy," Dave replied. "You're not scared, you? A rational man like you?" Steve sometimes hated Dave. He was right. What did he have to be afraid of? He was a rational man. He kept telling himself that to settle his nerves. Pulling out his phone, his hand shook as he found the directions. "It's downstairs," he said. Sensing the tension among the team, Dave took a moment to lift their spirits. He lowered his camera and glanced at the others, searching for a way to inspire them. "Listen, guys. The paranormal activity we've captured tonight is incredible," he said enthusiastically. "We have video evidence that's hard to dismiss. This investigation is going to make waves in the paranormal community and will be talked about for years, right alongside the legendary cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Who knows? It might even become a blockbuster movie. Tonight could make us famous." His words resonated with the team, reminding them of their purpose. This was exactly what they had set out to do, and it was shaping up to be their best investigation. Excitement bubbled within them as they felt a renewed sense of confidence. Dave was right. The evidence they had captured tonight was undeniable, and the thought of becoming famous paranormal investigators felt within reach. "Just wait until we upload this to our channel, it's going to go viral," Kevin said excitedly, his newfound confidence shining through. Dave turned the video camera onto Steve. "All right, boss. Lead the way." He gestured with an open hand, silently inviting him to step ahead. Chapter 16, Mind Rejuvenation Wing. The team entered another corridor, stopping at a set of double doors with a sign above that read, "Mind Rejuvenation Wing." The icy air made their breath visible in the dim light. Dave turned his camera on himself and remarked, "It's suddenly gone cold. When a spirit's nearby, the temperature drops. Be on the lookout for any unusual phenomena." Steve studied the map on his phone and looked up at the team. "Beyond those doors is the electric shock treatment and lobotomy ward," he said. Keeping up with the macabre atmosphere of the asylum, Dave pointed out another eerie fact. "Did you know they even performed electroshock treatments and lobotomies on children?" he remarked, shaking his head. Tanya looked at Dave sadly and replied, "The real lunatics were the ones running this place." Suddenly, loud footsteps pounded across the ceiling above them. The team froze, their eyes wide with fear as they looked up, hearts racing. "What the fuck?" Kevin shouted. "There's someone upstairs," Dave yelled. The team stared up at the ceiling, mouths agape, their flashlights casting light across it. A tense silence fell over the corridor, and once more, footsteps thundered from one end of the ceiling to the other, reverberating loudly above them. Dust and plaster cascaded down like confetti. "Jesus Christ!" Kevin exclaimed. "It sounds like there's an elephant up there." Dave pointed his video camera at the ceiling, waiting for the sound to return, but all he heard was an eerie silence. "Let's go up and find out who or what is up there," he suggested. "Listen," Steve said, his voice serious. "We might not be facing something supernatural up there. It could actually be a real nutter." Dave dismissed Steve's concerns with a wave of his hand. "I'm going up there. If it's a nutter looking for a fight, I'll knock their lights out." With that, he dashed up the stairwell, camera in hand, prompting the rest of the team to follow him, albeit reluctantly. Chapter 17, A Prank. They paused on the landing, frantically scanning the darkness around them as their flashlight beams flickered through the shadows. Moving cautiously forward, Kevin and Dave held their video cameras tightly, searching the area but finding nothing. "Whoever it was, they've gone," Steve said. Dave suddenly noticed a dark figure lurking in the shadowy recesses of the corridor. There was something unsettling about that silhouette. Its arms appeared unnaturally long for its torso, stretching out as if reaching for Steve. "Steve, behind you!" Dave shouted, directing his flashlight toward the shadowy figure as it glided quickly into a room. With a deafening bang, the door slammed shut behind it. Without hesitation, Dave sprinted forward, camera in hand. The eerie green hue of the night vision illuminated the room ahead, but this time, the team didn't follow. "Come on!" Dave called back, but his urgency was met with silence. Tanya emerged from the shadows, her voice trembling. "Don't go in there," she pleaded, her tone filled with urgency. "Whatever's in there. It's not a spirit. There's a dark intelligence behind it. I think we're dealing with something demonic. Evil. It wants you to go in there. Whatever you do, don't enter that room," she warned. Dave stared at her in disbelief, the passionate speech he delivered moments earlier now feeling utterly wasted. "Chicken shits," he muttered in disgust. "Call yourselves paranormal investigators? You're a fucking joke, all of you." His eyes dropped to the door handle. "I'm going in," he said defiantly. He turned the handle and slowly opened the door. Chapter 18, All in the Mind? Stepping into the room with his camera, Dave searched for whoever, or whatever, had entered. "Who's in here?" he demanded threateningly. There was silence. Then, he sensed a presence behind him. He turned. It was the team, cautiously standing in the doorway. Turning back to the room, Dave searched the darkness with his flashlight. "Strange," Kevin muttered, stepping inside. "Looks empty. Are you sure it was this room?" "It could have been your shadow," Steve said calmly. "Probably a trick of the light. Shadows can play tricks on your mind, especially in a place like this." "Fuck you!" Dave snapped, his anger boiling over. "Why do you even bother coming if you think it's all bullshit? You're a fucking moron. I know what I seen. It wasn't a fucking trick of the light, dickhead." Steve backed off as Dave, in a fit of rage, kicked a wooden chair across the room. "I know you're in here. Come out," he shouted, his voice echoing off the damp walls. Frustrated, Dave crouched to check under the bed, nothing. He stood and walked to the barred window, staring out at the rain-soaked trees silhouetted against the moonlight. Doubt crept in. Was it a trick of light? Was Steve right? Turning back to Kevin and Steve, who watched him silently, concern on their faces. He felt anger surge again. "What are you looking at?" he shouted. "I'm not crazy. I saw something, came in here, and you all heard the door slam." Tanya said there was something demonic in this room. Dave looked around, searching for her. "Tanya," he shouted. "Get your ass in here." Tanya remained outside, unwilling to step into that room. A palpable dread gripped her as she sensed a dark presence within, one that was growing stronger with each passing moment. Chapter 19, When Evidence Evades, Choose Blinding Rage. Dave sat on the bed, setting his camera down beside him. He needed proof to silence their doubts. Then it hit him, he had caught it on camera. Finally, he had the evidence to show he wasn't crazy. Grabbing his camera, he looked at Kevin and Steve. "I've got the evidence right here," he said triumphantly, shaking the camera. "Come and see for yourselves." Kevin and Steve exchanged uneasy glances before approaching. Dave rewound the footage and pressed play, but the screen flickered with static before going black. Frowning, he checked the battery. It was fully charged earlier. Swapping it for a spare, he tried again. Nothing. Frustrated, he grabbed another battery, but the result was the same. What the fuck is going on? Dave shouted in frustration. Dave turned to Kevin. Give me your camera. Before Kevin could respond, Dave snatched it from his hands and checked it over. Looking through the lens, the night vision lit up the room. It was still working. Perfect, he exclaimed, a flicker of hope sparking within him. He swapped Kevin's SD card for his own. Now I'll show you what I saw, he said, turning on the camera. But as soon as he powered it up, the screen went black. No power. Nothing. Fuck, he yelled aggressively. This is fucking bullshit. His outburst startled Kevin and Steve, who backed away uneasily. Desperate, Dave rummaged through his rucksack and pulled out his laptop. He removed the SD card from Kevin's camera and powered on the laptop, urging, "Come on, come on." Once it booted up, he quickly logged in and opened the video file. Corruption warning. The message flashed on the screen. Dave stared in disbelief and tried again. Same result. He grabbed Kevin's SD card, jammed it into the laptop, and opened the file. Another corruption warning. The SD cards are corrupted, Dave muttered, his face pale. Both of them? That's impossible. Kevin exclaimed. Dave's anger was at boiling point. The cameras don't work, the SD cards are useless, and all the footage is gone. The whole night has been a fucking waste of time. And all the paranormal activity we caught? Fucking gone, he yelled. In a fit of rage, he hurled the laptop across the room, smashing it against the wall. Bastard, he screamed, consumed by fury. He grabbed the camera and hurled it against the wall, where it shattered into pieces. Kevin panicked. He didn't want his camera to suffer the same fate. He rushed to grab it off the bed before Dave could reach it, but Dave was quicker. They tugged at it, but Dave's strength prevailed as he yanked it back and stood up with the camera. Gone, he shouted, smashing it to the floor and scattering pieces everywhere. Dave! Kevin yelled in horror. That cost me 400 quid. Shut it, you whining little bitch, or I'll give you something to cry about, Dave shot back menacingly. Kevin could see that Dave meant it. He didn't want to provoke him any further. Kevin looked at Dave, hurt in his eyes. His mouth felt dry, panic creeping in, but he finally found the confidence to speak, his voice trembling. We needed those cameras for our channel. What are we going to do now? Dave glared at him, disgusted by his weakness. An overwhelming urge to lash out surged within him. You better shut your mouth before I shut it for you. Kevin's heart raced as the tension in the room thickened. He watched in horror as Dave, a hulking figure consumed by rage, charged to the corner and flipped over the bed, sending the metal frame clattering to the floor. This was meant to be our best investigation, he screamed, frantically searching for something else to destroy. In a fit of fury, he seized a bedside table and hurled it across the room. But now it's all gone to shit. Our channel's fucking ruined. Steve and Kevin instinctively ducked to avoid being hit as the table shattered against the wall behind them, splintering into pieces. They stood there, breathless and wide-eyed, both afraid of how quickly the situation had escalated into violence. Tanya stood outside, listening to the chaos erupting inside. She could hear the sound of furniture crashing, and Dave's furious screams. She knew that Dave was now under the influence of the entity, and that they were all in danger. Steve, alarmed by Dave's uncontrollable rage, tried to calm him down. Dave! Dave, he shouted, desperately reaching out to Dave. Calm down, buddy. Dave turned to Steve, pure hatred burning in his eyes. It was all Steve's fault. If he hadn't doubted him, none of this would have happened. He wouldn't have to prove anything, and the camera would still be working. In a sudden burst of psychotic aggression, Dave lunged at Steve, wrapping his large hands around his neck and squeezing tightly, crushing his windpipe with brutal force. "You fucking bastard!" Dave yelled, spittle flying from his mouth. "I didn't see anything, it was just your shadow," he mocked. "I'll fucking kill you." Steve struggled to breathe, gasping as blood rushed to his head. He met Dave's furious gaze and managed to croak out a single word, "Stop." But Dave continued to throttle him, his anger reigniting at the thought of all the lost footage. Steve felt himself starting to black out. Kevin swung a heavy wooden chair, striking Dave across the head with such force that the chair splintered upon impact. Suddenly, Dave lost his grip and collapsed onto Steve, who struggled to push him off. As Dave rolled away, Steve sat up, gasping for air.